this video I'm going to talk about the HTML box model. So let's open up my dev folder, my development folder. I have lecture 4 in here. Open up a terminal. Okay, I've got my intro to css.html file that I made previously. So if I want, I can just copy that over and rename it. And that way I have the old one saved and I can just start here. And we can always reference the old one if we need to. Alright, so let's open our editor. I'm using the Atom editor. HTML box model. Change the title. Okay, and we'll save this. And last time we learned about the scopy command. I'm going to do that again. It's a little bit easier or quicker than FileZilla. So let me go ahead and log in. I go to my public HTML folder, list the contents, cd. So I need to edit my index again and add a link to this new folder or this new HTML file. Oops, I don't need that BR tag in there. Okay, so I make a list item tag. Close it. Inside of that, make an A tag. Go in this folder, which is public HTML. Look for the lecture 4, and look for HTML box model.html. Okay, inside of the A tag is the text that's actually going to be displayed. So this is HTML box model. Alright, Control O writes out, save, enter, Control X exits Pico ls. So we can cat lets you concatenate files or view a single file. We can cat what we just created there. Oh yeah, we created that locally. Oh no, that was the index file. Cat index. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So we open a browser now. And go CS151, and there's our link. It's dead because we don't have the file yet. So here's where we go. This first terminal tab, I'm logged into ISU, the CS server. On the second one, this is my local machine. Okay, so I'm going to use the scopy command, scp. What file do I want to copy? HTML box model. Where do I want to copy it to? Well, I want to copy it to my user account, CS15100, on the CS server, cs.ind state.edu, and then the path where I want to copy it to, I put after this colon. The path I want to copy it to is my home folder / public HTML / Okay. Oops, don't have a space. There we go. Okay, transferred it over. If we go back to our terminal session on the CS server, we can ls and look inside lecture 4. There it is, HTML box model. So it transferred, reload the page, there we are. And we know it's the new one because it says HTML box model up here, and that's from the title tag. Alright. So the HTML box model allows you, it's the foundation of laying out HTML elements on the web. It's a very basic model, and it's got a lot of problems actually, and there's some different ways to lay things out, but it's the core. It was the first way they designed to lay out elements, and it's still a part of HTML. You still use it a lot, and so we're going to go over that, and eventually we'll go into some of the more advanced methods of laying out elements. But the box model is essentially broken up into container components. So if we look in Google Chrome, if you open your developer tools, they have a picture of the box model right here. Okay, so imagine this is a div element, and you have something inside that div element right here. There's a concept of padding. Outside of the padding, you can put a border around things, and outside of the border, you have a margin, which is extra spacing. Okay, so I'll demonstrate what all these items are, but just so you know, Google Chrome and the developer tools has this image, which is going to be helpful for your understanding of what's going on with the box model. Alright, so let's go back into code here. Let's make a, let's get rid of these. Let's make an outer div. I'm going to give it a class name. This is my outside div. Okay, so I'm going to add a class outside. Now, in order to visualize some of this stuff, I'm going to use background colors for the different div elements to help you see what's going on a little bit. So this outside div, we're going to give it a width of 800 pixels and a height of 600 pixels. And then we're going to give it a background color of, let's see, there, kind of a green color there. Alright, so this style selector, we're in the style tag. The selector is going to look for any element that has the class. That's what that dot means. It's looking for a class, and the class value is outside. Okay, so if we save this, we can copy it. And we can view it. There, big green box. Alright, so now we can look, we see that we could make two green boxes if we want, real easy, just by duplicating that line. Again, in Atom, if you're using that, you can hit Control-Shift-D, and that duplicates a line. It's really handy. So if we want, we can do all of those. It's completely unnecessary, but why not? Oops. reload the page, and all of these are stacked end to end. You can't even see any gap between them. Okay, that gap is part of the HTML box model. Right now there is no gap between them. All right. So we'll get into what that means next. So let's put a div inside our first div. So this is going to be class div class equals inside. So this is our inside element. And we close it. We copy and paste this. Inside. Okay, so let's make this 80 by 60. And we'll make the color blue. Oops. So here I just switched the blue aspect and the green aspect. So the green was C, which is a very high level. It goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, A, B, C, D, E, F. Those are the hexadecimal digits. So C is pretty high. And so our green level, which is the middle, this is red. These two are red. These two are green. And these two are blue. Our green level was pretty high at CC. Our blue level was in the middle, a little bit low at 5.5. I just switched those two, and here I made the green level what the blue level was, and then our blue level is the highest now, which is why this one looks more blue. Okay, so we're going to go out into color a little bit more on one of the other lectures. Okay, so we'll save this and move it over. Page. Okay, so we've got this div element inside a larger element. This is our inside div and this is our outside div. Okay, so there's several alignment things that I can do to position the inside element. So if I use the text align property and type center, I can center that box, the blue box inside of the green box. Maybe not. Oh yeah, this is. That would be if it was text. This is margin auto, I believe. Oops. Take that one. Might as well leave it here. I need margin auto on the blue one. Okay, so that allows you to center left and right. I can add, let's see, Okay, so to start with, we have a blue box inside of this green box. Now, vertical alignment with this box model is one of the problems with the box model. They've since solved it with things like Flexbox and CSS Grid, but vertical alignment has been notoriously difficult and just a real pain, really. So we can go into some of the other ways to align things vertically. But this margin, if you remember, if we go back to our box model here, it is the outside most portion of the box model. Alright, so the margin auto, I've put an automatic margin of the left and the right, and it automatically balances them. So if I did margin, let's do 20 pixels. I have a margin of 20 pixels here and a margin of 20 pixels here. I inspect the element. It highlights the margins. Alright, on the outside I can add a padding, which you have margin, border, and padding. So padding is right around the actual content in the very middle. So the content of the outside div is this inside div. If we add text, the content of the inside div is text. We'll make the text white. So we can add padding to the outside div. And let's add a nice padding of, say, 50 pixels. Okay, so if we inspect this element, the outside element here, these are all the CSS properties that apply to this outside element. So this gap here, right here, is our padding. This gap would be margin. That's margin auto. So that gap equals this gap. And then now we can add the border property, just so we can see exactly where everything is. Add a border. The style is a solid line. The color we will make black, and we'll make it 10 pixels wide. It's a big border. Okay, so here we have margin. See, it highlights it. When I hover over margin, it highlights the margin of this outside element. Border highlights it. Padding, you see how it's highlighted. And then content. So this is the actual content inside of this div. Now the reason the smaller div is smaller than the content here is because I specified a height and width on it. If instead I specified a width of 100%, that's going to fill up 100% of the available space from the parent. And then on a height of 100%, that's going to fill up all of the available space. Okay. Now, this is a little bit off because we added a margin of 20 pixels. Okay, so let's delete that. I'll comment it out. You can comment out different portions of your CSS with /star, and then the closing comment is */. In HTML, the comment tag is less than, !, --, and then --, greater than. Okay, so these are two different languages essentially. Every language, or most languages, have a comment syntax, and CSS is this. This also works for JavaScript. JavaScript has another one that's easier, well, not easier, but different, and so I'll show you that when we get there. So anyway, commenting out the margin, copy it over, okay, see, that straightened it up. So we have, on our outside div, we have margin, it highlights it on the outside. We have border, this is our 10 pixel border, and we can change all that here. We can change this to dashed, we can change it to magenta, and we can make it 40 pixels if we want. Oh yeah, that is nice and horrendous. Okay, so you can read about all the different border types. Said border style CSS, and first thing comes up is W3 schools, which we mentioned before. So there's a bunch of different border types. There's none is the default. Dotted, dash, solid, double, groove, ridge, inset, outset. So let's see if. So here's a little widget that they have to show you all the different kinds. So there's a dotted, a dash border, solid, double border, a groove. So you see on the groove, it's dark on the outside and light on the inside on the left side, but on the right side it's dark on the left and light on the right. Ridge, I think, is the opposite. Inset, it's dark on the top two, light on the bottom, or on the left and top, and light on the right and bottom. Outset, and so you can change them each individually too. Okay, so here, border style, dotted is the top, solid is the right, double is the bottom, and dashed. So on these CSS properties, you can think of it like a clock. The first one is always noon, and it goes clockwise. So it's noon, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Okay, so this is top, right, bottom, left. Okay, so those are different border styles. And let's change that back to uh, 10 and black. And make this solid. Okay. That is just terrible. There we go. That's much better. Okay. So all of these items take up space. I defined the area of my element to be 800 by 600 pixels. Okay. That is this area in the middle. I gave it a padding of 50. So that means the width total of the green is 900. And then I added a border of 10. So 10 on each side is 20. So from border to border, this is 920 pixels. And then I did margin auto, and in this case it calculated the margin as 85 on each side. If I change that, see the margin changed to 138, 138. So I'm changing the size of the view, and so it's recalculating the margin since I told it to automatically do that. As I move this, it's recalculating the margin automatically. So that's what margin auto means. Okay, so now let's mess around with the blue one. Okay, so we've got height and width 100%. Let's change this to something more specific. Let's do 50. Let's see. We'll do 80px for the width and 60px for the height. And then we're going to add a padding of 5 pixels. Forgot my colon. And we're going to add more text so we can see what that looks like. Okay, so you see that the text automatically wraps around inside of the element. We see we've got a little bit of padding here. Let's get rid of the padding and see what it looks like, because it doesn't look good without the padding. If we comment that out, see how it's right up against the edge? That doesn't look good at all. So a little padding helps it aesthetically. When you're designing a website, you want a little bit of padding around some stuff to kind of make it look pretty. We can add a border also. This one we can do, let's do inset, we'll do color, let's just do kind of a gray. And where we went, 2 pixels. Alright, so that looks kind of nice, right? So inset makes it look like it's kind of laid in to that div. If I used outset, it would make it look like it was raised up. So that's kind of the idea of those border names. We see the text is right there. So now let's add like too much text. We'll make this a little bit bigger. We'll make it 200 and 150. And we're going to add way too much text. Try to get it to overflow. Copy that over. Okay, now this is classic CSS. You would think that if you had too much text, it would just create the scroll bar and it would scroll, but that's not the default behavior for some reason. It's kind of a classic joke in web development. Like, it doesn't do what you would think it would do. It does something terrible. So we can fix this. There's a CSS property called overflow. And so we do this on the containing element. So this is this div, our inside div, our blue div. So if there's any overflow, which that means the elements inside are too big for the size of this element, we can automatically scroll. So overflow auto. Now that's more of the default behavior that you're looking for. Okay. Okay. So there's also an outline property which doesn't take up space. See, border actually takes up space. If we look at our HTML box model here, the size of our element is 800. This is the green element. The actual size of the element is 800 by 600. Padding adds 50 to all sides, and the background is included in the padding, which is why this is still green. Okay, but background is not included in the margin. Okay, and then the border here actually takes up space. It's 10 pixels. Okay, so I can add an outline property. Let's do an outline of 10 pixels. Make it solid. Magenta, just so we can see it, and we'll make it 10 pixels. Okay, now the outline doesn't take up space, and so we will still see some of the border. And I mean, it doesn't take up space in terms of the box model. When you add border, you're actually adding space. You're adding pixels to the size of the element. Outline, you're not. Okay, so here, the outline is starting in the middle of the border and going out 10 pixels. Let's make these bigger so you can see what's going on a little bit better. 50 and 50. So here's the middle, we've got padding, we've got border, and outline just went around the outside of that. But it doesn't take up any space. You see it's actually in the margin, right? So that's important to recognize that. If I had margin 0 here and another element next to it, this outline would be covering up some of the other element. And I can demonstrate that. Let's move this outline down to the inside div, and we'll make it 20 pixels, and then we'll make another div right next to it, or right below it. We'll call it inside 2. Let's see, we'll copy all this. Inside 2, and we want width and height the same, background color the same, it's all fine. Keep the border on it, but we won't have the outline. Oops. This needs to be inside the green one there. And I'll go ahead and put some text in there. Okay, so you see how the outline overlaps where this element is. Okay, because it doesn't take up space, whereas the border of this element still exists. See that gray part? Let's make this a little bit more clear. Instead of using inset here. Yeah, let's make these solid. This one will be yellow. And this one will be purple. Okay, so you see the border actually takes space. We see the yellow border and then the purple border. I can zoom in. You can zoom in on a browser by holding, most browsers by holding Control and scrolling the mouse wheel up and down, or you can also hit Control plus and Control minus. You see over here it says 175. I'm at 175% of the normal view. Right, that's normal. Anyway, we zoom in here and we see the border here actually takes up space, and then the next border butts up right up against it. Meanwhile, this outline does not take up space because it does not push this element down. Okay, so that's the important distinction between border and outline. Okay, so that's the basics of the box model. The big part of it is remembering this image here. Let's go back to normal size. The content is the size of the thing that you actually specify. So we specified 800 pixels by 600. That's the size of the content. If you add padding, that increases the size. It's in addition to your specified content size, and that includes background color or background image. Okay. Then border takes up space, and then margin, it does not include the background, and it's on the outside. Alright? So that's all I have for this one.